They mocked him, called him the old janitor, and threw trash in his face in front of everyone. No one stood up. Not a single person stopped them. But just minutes later, it was he who brought a gang of thugs to their knees, while the police stood at attention, saluting. This isn't fiction. This is real, the story of a man the world once looked down on until he picked up a broom and took down a gunman in a crowded diner. And when his true identity was revealed, every gaze shifted. In just a moment, you'll understand why. You should never judge a person by the clothes they wear. San Bernardino, California, a quiet Tuesday afternoon, no breeze. The trees along 5th Street sway gently in the sunlight, and the Little Mesa Diner is open as always, a classic American joint, a haunt for truckers, workers, and longtime locals. In that laid-back air, he appeared like a shadow. Push the door open so softly, the bell above it barely chimed, like a faint sigh. No uniform, no shiny name tag, just a faded jacket, ash-gray khakis, and worn-out shoes. A tattered canvas bag hung from his shoulder, a broom and mop in his hands. A scrawled plastic sign in black ink is pinned to his back. Jake, maintenance. No one greeted him. No one asked how he was. The waitress glided past like he was invisible. A few customers glanced his way, then went back to their meals. He didn't react, bent down, started sweeping, wiping table legs and cleaning the corners of the floor, gathering trash into a small white plastic bag quietly, slowly. A man nearby muttered, "I don't know why they still let that old guy work here. Makes me lose my appetite." Snickers erupted from the table behind. 3 muscled men, arms covered in tattoos, ate while eyeing Jake like he was some cheap sideshow. One of them stood, half-empty beer can in hand, and walked over, slamming it down on the table, startling everyone. "Hey, old man. Can't clean a table any faster than that. Or are your hands shaking too much to hold the broom?" His voice was slurred, but dripping with provocation. Jake said nothing, just bent down, picking up a crumpled napkin at the man's feet. "I'm talking to you, old man," the thug growled. Then, suddenly, kicked over the bucket of water nearby. It spilled everywhere, splashing like a slap to dignity. But Jake stayed calm, picked up the broom. His eyes fixed on the floor. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something stirring inside, something waking up. The deep, cold, and silent look in his eyes made the thug take half a step back. But then he gritted his teeth, snatched the broom from Jake's hands and smashed it against the table. Wood splintered. "Who do you think you are? Old geezers like you belong in a nursing home, not sweeping trash for laughs." His lips curled in contempt. Jake stood tall, no anger, no fear, just that gaze so piercing. It made the air in the diner taut as a wire, a gaze like it had seen blood-soaked battlefields, a gaze of someone who'd walked out of a place where life and death were a single breath apart. The thug gripped the broken broom handle, raising it high, ready to swing at him. Everyone held their breath. One more blow, and things would spiral out of control. All eyes were on him, the frail, quiet old man no one thought could fight back. Everyone assumed he'd collapse. But they were wrong. They didn't know that this silent shadow with calloused hands was once a name that made an entire special forces team stand and salute when he entered a briefing room. And now, the one who'd just humiliated him was about to find out why. The air in the diner was now so thick it choked everyone's breath out. The thug roared, yanking a gun from his waistband and waving it in the stunned faces of the crowd. "Everybody, stay put, move an inch, and your head's gone." His voice was sharp, frantic, laced with agitation. The other 2 jumped up instantly, locking the door, pulling the blinds, and turning the small diner into a sealed box with no way out. One of them stormed to the kitchen, pressing a gun to the young waitress's head, making her tremble, tears streaming silently down her face. In less than a minute, it was no longer a diner. It was a den of terror. All the customers were herded into a corner, crouched against the wall, hands raised, eyes wide with fear. The sound of sirens outside felt like echoes from a distant world, irrelevant to this place. And Jake, the man who, just minutes ago, was quietly mopping the floor, was now dragged to the center of the room, kneeling under the cold barrel of a gun. One of the thugs grabbed his hair, snarling, "You like staring at me? Huh. Get a good look now, you old wreck." He laughed as if it were a petty game. They started recording a video, filming while hurling insults at him. "Hey, TikTok, check out what we're playing with." A floor-sweeping old man, America's finest. The one with the phone cackled, zooming in on Jake's face like he was filming a clown in a circus. But Jake didn't say a word. His face was yanked back, deep wrinkles etched sharply, a few streaks of blood rolling from his forehead to his cheek. But his eyes, they stayed steady, unyielding. No begging, no trembling. Just silence. A silence that scared people more than any scream. One of the thugs, annoyed at being ignored, snapped and kicked Jake hard in the back. He collapsed forward, his forehead smacking the floor. Blood pooled in a dark red streak. A young woman screamed in panic, "Stop it! He's old." But the thug glanced at her with a sneer, spat on the ground, and growled, "Worried about him. You'll be joining him soon." The silence was shattered. A wave of fear swallowed everyone. No one dared speak. Only the sound of ragged, uneven breathing, and the cold click of a gun being cocked. Jake lay there, blood still trickled from his lip. A man whispered to his wife, "He's probably passed out," but he hadn't. Jake wasn't unconscious. He was waiting for the exact moment. And when the leader bent down, jabbing a finger into Jake's forehead and hissing, "I'll shoot. If you keep looking at me like that," everything seemed to freeze. Jake's eyes in that instant changed, not literally, but in a way that only those who've survived war and walked through death without blinking could ever understand. That look made the thug falter like an icy hand had just gripped his spine. He tried to mask his shudder by shouting louder, "Who do you think you are? You're just a useless old janitor." But in the moment he raised his hand, ready to slam the gun's butt into Jake's head, everything stopped. The air felt solid. Time seemed to halt. A fog was lifting. A truth was rising. And that thug had no idea. He'd just made the worst mistake of his life. The price he was about to pay wouldn't be an apology. It would be terror for the rest of his days. No one in the diner could process what was happening. A sharp, dry sound cracked through the air, not a gunshot. It was the sound of bone snapping against the hard floor. The thug closest to Jake suddenly crumpled. His wrist was twisted back, the gun skittering away, and he screamed in agony. It took one moment, one movement, and then Jake stood up, not slowly, not trembling, but crisp, steady as if age was just a coat he could shrug off at will. His eyes were cold. His hands are firm. His steps were silent like an old tiger gliding through a dry forest, leaving no trace. The other two thugs froze, too shocked to react, as Jake spun using the broken broom handle to strike the second one cleanly at the base of the neck. A sharp thwack rang out precise, efficient, no wasted motion. The man collapsed, unconscious. The last thug stumbled back, stammering. Who are you?" Jake didn't answer. He bent down, picked up the gun from the floor, and dismantled the magazine with practiced ease, like someone who'd done it 1,000 times. The remaining thug, shaking uncontrollably, turned to flee, but before he could take 3 steps, the diner's door burst open. FBI, nobody move. The command boomed. A tactical team stormed in, clad in body armor, weapons drawn. The lead officer froze mid-step, his eyes locking onto Jake standing there, holding the neutralized gun. "Oh my God, Sir Jake Douglas." His voice caught, half reverence, half disbelief. Another officer stepped forward, removing his sunglasses, muttering as if to himself, "That's the legend, the one who saved hostages in Houston in '93, who took down the terror cell at LAX 20 years ago." The diner fell silent. The people who'd been cowering now stared at him, stunned, speechless, at a loss for words. Jake stood there, blood on his shirt, sleeve torn, his eyes still deep and cold as ever. A young soldier approached cautiously, asking, "Sir, do you still carry your military ID?" Jake slightly nodded, pulling a worn card from his chest pocket. Its edges were frayed. A silver eagle emblem gleamed faintly. The officer bowed his head. "It's an honor to see you again, Captain." The thugs handcuffed, heads down, too ashamed to look up. The one who'd just come to was trembling, whispering, I didn't know." "I'm sorry, sir." Jake said nothing. He wiped the blood from his forehead with his sleeve, then turned to face the onlookers. Their eyes no longer held pity. They held awe, absolute respect. Those who'd mocked him. Now, they bowed their heads in silence. And then, Jake walked to the broken broom lying on the floor, picked it up, gently, as if it were a piece of himself he'd once set aside. Outside, ambulance sirens wailed, but inside, hearts were still. Because now, they understood, the man they'd once scorned was the same man an entire tactical team had once stood at attention for when he walked into the room. Jake said nothing. He didn't accept congratulations. Nor did he step toward the microphones the media were hastily setting up outside the door. He just stood there, resting the broken broom lightly on his shoulder, walking slowly but steadily, as if all those years hadn't stopped him for a moment. A young officer approached, offering to help him to the ambulance, but Jake shook his head. He gave a faint smile. His voice was low, warm, like a father teaching his child, "I'm fine. Just a scratch." Then he looked at the ringleader, the one now kneeling, bruised, head bowed, too ashamed to meet anyone's eyes. Jake spoke, softly, but the whole diner heard, "You're still young. Mistakes, there's still time to fix them. But don't wait until you've lost everything to learn how to be human." The thug broke down, sobbing, whether from pain or something awakening inside him. No one knew, but everyone could see he was no longer the arrogant man from before. The police led them away, quietly, as if they didn't want to disturb the stillness settling over the room. One by one, people approached Jake. No one called him the janitor anymore. A man gripped his hand, voice trembling. "Thank you for being here today." A boy, sitting in the corner from the start, slowly took off his baseball cap and bowed his head to Jake. He said nothing, but his eyes spoke volumes. Someone suggested he receive a medal, a commendation. Jake just shook his head. "I only did what I've always done, like so many who served this country, quietly, without expecting reward." Then he bent down, picked up scattered trash, righted a toppled chair, straightened a crooked tablecloth, as if everything that had just happened was merely a fleeting dream. Then he left the diner. No police escort, no sirens, no one is leading the way. Just an old man with a lean silhouette, walking down a sunlit afternoon street. His shadow stretched long across the pavement, then blended into the bustling crowd. But those who remained in the diner that day knew they'd witnessed something profound, something no book could teach, a lesson that couldn't be lectured or forced, only felt with the heart, a lesson about patience, about the strength in silence, about a hero who needed no cape. And perhaps, the greatest lesson of all, never judge someone by the clothes they wear, because beneath a faded shirt might beat a heart that's faced gunfire. Behind wrinkled hands might be hands that diffused bombs, saved lives, and kept a city safe. And behind that quiet gate might be a past that demands a generation's respect. Some people don't need to be known, don't need to be celebrated, but they show up at the right moment. And because of them, we can sit here telling this story, the story of an old man, a broken broom, and a lesson that must never be forgotten. Jake's story may have ended, but the lesson he left behind lives on. Sometimes those who seem the smallest carry the power to change a moment of life with just the right timing and the right heart. If this story moved you, leave a comment below. Share this video to spread the message of respect, kindness, and belief in the quiet heroes among us. Don't forget to hit subscribe to catch more inspiring stories like this. Thank you for listening.